Hi, I'm Mia Liljeberg and I'm here in the studio with Antoni Lacinai. Antoni, you are a global keynote speaker. You've been speaking in over 30 countries and you're also an author and executive communication coach. How did you end up here?
Well, I left the corporate career back in 2006 to coach leaders and teams around the world. And one thing I noticed was that many of them are frustrated. They say things like, why aren't they as passionate as I am? Or what's wrong with them? Why don't they understand what I'm saying? Things like that. So I'm just trying to help them overcome those hurdles.
And because as you coach senior leaders, you get to hear things behind the hidden doors that we don't see in the town hall. So what are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of driven people that are also human. So they have their own insecurities about strategies, about how to convey messages and so on. And again, that's why I'm trying to help them.
And as you do both keynotes and coaching with senior leaders, so all over the world. So what are the patterns that you see in all leadership teams?
I see a clarity gap. They might know things because they've got the information earlier, they can digest it and so on and talk about it. But then when it comes out to the rest of the organization, it's the presumption that they should know and understand immediately. And sometimes I call this the clarity gap because your intentions are not necessarily understood immediately. And especially if you use complicated language, that doesn't really help the audience or your team members to understand what you're saying. So there's a gap between those two. We can call it a clarity gap.
So let's stay with this clarity gap. So we have a strategy, we've had a really good off-site meeting strategy, and then a couple of months later, nothing really happened. What went wrong?
Well, probably people didn't get it. And if they got it, they might not still agree. So there's a number of steps that can happen. Because really what you want is to get a new outcome, a new result. And the only way to get a new result is to change behavior of everyone. And that doesn't happen unless you understand, unless you're motivated and engaged to do those changes in your behavior. And all of that boils back into communication. So communication shapes behavior, behavior drives results. It doesn't always happen.
So what you're saying, it's not a strategy problem?
It is not a strategy problem. It's a communication problem dressed in a strategy suit, if you will.
I see. Because what I see is that leaders feel that they should communicate constantly. They are in Slack channels, they have town hall meetings, they have one-to-one. So they do feel like they are communicating. But why isn't it landing?
It's probably the confusion between clarity and transparency. What you're talking about here is transparency. I give you loads of information all the time, and I feel that I've done everything I can. But what's important within all this? What is the point? What is the real meaning and purpose? So if that's what you do, then you're not particularly clear. It's actually muddying the water instead of helping them. So perhaps here it's a better way to just be more clear and use fewer words, better words, and spend time on that. It's much easier to be complicated than to be simple.
Saying many words is easy. So is there a number we can put on this one? Is there a cost?
Yeah, there's actually a lot of numbers I've seen. Trillions of dollars, 9% of GDP. Just imagine if your organization had a 9% waste because of unclear communication. Or, as some surveys suggests, is that you spend 20% of your work time, that's like 1 day a week, managing misunderstandings. 20%. I think that this is the biggest waste of any organization today, but it's hidden. You can't really see it. There's no chief communication officer from that perspective. There might be heads of communication in other areas, but not necessarily in this one.
So the 20% we spend on misunderstandings could be avoided by investing more in the leadership communication.
For sure, because that's where it starts. Leadership communication leads to employee behavior, and behavior again leads to better results. So they all are interlinked.
And what about the managers in all this? How are they impacted by this misunderstandings, by this lack of communication skills? And
Yeah, it creates this disengagement, actually. What we see right now is that we have an employee engagement level of about 20%. 20% are actively, highly engaged. Normally, the managers have a much higher number. It has dropped to 22% from 30% like a few years ago to 22%. It's the same now. So what we see here is something very dangerous. Managers are not more motivated. And that means that we have a serious problem because they are the one who blow the wind in the sail. They are the one that helps everyone else. If they are not even engaged themselves, how can they make their people engaged?
So it could actually be that we are seeing the frustration in the managers from thinking that they are actually doing everything right with the transparency, but what they actually needed was more clarity.
Yes. And they spend so much time and energy on doing this and still don't get the result they want. And again, the outcome is the important thing here. It's the way to get there. Is again to be more clear in your communication, but not only clear. There are 3 communication superpowers actually. You have empathy, so that you connect with people. You have clarity, so that they understand you, and then you have energy, so that you show your passion. All of them needs to be in place if you want to be a great communicator.
But probably they've been listening a lot to other communication experts that's been saying, you need to communicate more, you need to be more transparent. But where are you thinking about this one?
Transparency and clarity are 2 different muscles. You need both. People like the transparency. They like to feel that they are involved, they understand things, but they also like direction and clarity. If you have both and understand that, again, there are 2 different muscles that you have to work with, then it's much easier. More communication by itself doesn't help. Just because you have more communication channel doesn't mean that you have more communication quality. And again, we're going to go for quality as well here.
And you quite strong on this clarity, so much that you actually written a book about it.
Yes, I did. I've written 15 books by now, and co-written, by the way, as well. But I wrote this 12 insights for workplace communication book called Say It So They Get It. And this is something I hand out now in my keynotes as well to the audience. So it's, again, it starts still with empathy. You still have to understand who you talk to. Then you can tailor your message accordingly, and then you deliver it in the right way. That's why you need all 3 of the superpowers. If you only have empathy but no energy, nothing will happen. If you have clarity but no empathy, you're going to come across as very insensitive. And if you only have energy and no clarity, for instance, then you're a clown. That's not good enough. You need all 3 in a good balance.
And as there's been such an emphasis on transparency that has probably made the clarity rising up as a bigger problem. The clarity gap is now surfacing. So
we see it again. There's nothing wrong with the strategies. It's the buy-in, and you can't buy into something you don't understand. So we have to be clear in also the strategies. Involve people as much as we can. Make them understand. Make them want to do things, not because they have to do things, because they want to do things.
But as far as I know, there are a lot of investment done on this already, isn't it? With culture programs, engagement surveys. Isn't that a way to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I think it's very good, but it's not enough. We don't need better HR initiatives. We don't need better strategy document. We need better Mondays. We need everyday conversations to be better. I learned this from an HR director in an international company. She said, we don't need better HR initiatives, we need better Mondays. I loved it, so I'm going to use that from now on. And again, we don't need better strategies either. They're good. We need better Mondays.
And you also, I think I've heard you say that you can't upskill your culture?
Yeah, I'm saying you can't upskill your culture, but you can upskill your communication. That, of course, will lead to a certain culture. The hundreds or thousands of conversations you have every day becomes your culture.
So if you wanted to leave the leader with one question they could ask themselves, what would that be?
I would go back to 3 questions and use the communication superpowers again. Am I showing empathy and interest in my people? Am I clear in my message? And how do I know, by the way? And then, do I show my passion and conviction about this? And those 3 questions are really good to ask yourself.
And if, let's say that they go back and want to have a different thing on Monday, what would they do differently?
Well, I would say care more. Start with just caring for your vision, your mission, your goals, and your people. Your team will care if you care, but only if you care about the right things.
So we talked a lot about the leadership communication and the employee behavior, but why does this matter beyond the organization chart?
The reason is that your internal culture becomes your external brand. The way you meet, greet, and treat your colleagues will have a direct effect on how you meet, greet, and treat your customers. For instance, if you're in a bad environment internally, 25% of your people will actually take out their frustrations on their clients. That's not good.
I think I've met those people. So this seems like it's a very important investment to do. And what if someone wants to work with you? How can they work with you?
Well, if we talk about the product I sell, you have me on a stage. That's for the kickoff or the conference and so on. But it could also be running programs on communication skills and the one-on-one coaching that I often do as well. So those are basically the three areas where I help organizations, leaders, and teams to become better communicators so that they get a better result. It's all about the outcome. The rest is just the way there.
It's all about the outcome, and you start with the communication. Thank you so much, Antoni.
Thank you, Mia.